morning and welcome to Dualitea. I'm your host, Akasha. I have a very special guest, Anita, on the show today.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And today, we're going to talk about a few things, but something that we're going to kind of base off of right now is how things manifest when you're, like, say, picking at your brain, how they can kind of manifest into picking at your physical and then physically picking at your skin and things of that sort. So not only like metaphorically, but also for any of those who are aware or not aware, there is a thing called dermatillomania. If I'm not pronouncing that right, I apologize to anyone that offends. I barely pronunciate anything right. That what I was saying yesterday when we were on the phone is like when you're on an online community and there's like a big word involved in the community, it's like I feel like I didn't know, I didn't say it outside of my own head because I was constantly reading it rather than speaking about it. That I'm like, I don't even know if this is completely correct, but you know, we'll work with it. So thank you. And so for those who know or don't know about it, it's could be classified as a disorder. I don't like to let any kind of label rule or like take up that much space in my reality in the way of like you're not your diagnosis, but also like just to acknowledge on the fact that that is a thing. It's considered a disorder of sorts. I don't know exactly what kind, but maybe an OCD. I think it's like OCD. It's like a compulsion. And so I've been a skin picker since I was like probably after my first predominant blackhead. Like I remember when I was in the first grade, I had went to my mom had to take me to the dermatologist because I had a blackhead on my lip line that was like so deep that like my mom couldn't get it out. And I remember sitting down. It's the only time I've ever been to a dermatologist probably in my life. I think maybe one more time. And it was like I remember just taking out the tool and doing that and like getting it out, and I was just like, oh my god, well that came out of there. That's crazy. I hurt so much on the lip line. I was like, this hurts. Like,
really sensitive area.
It really is, and it inflames so much. And I remember, like, even if I look at my first grade picture, still to this day, I know not only did the mustache exist right there, it was starting, you know, before my mom started bleaching my mustache. Like, it was there, you know, but then right under it, I see the blackhead. And it's something that people probably would never notice, but I knew. And I feel like not because of that experience, more just since that experience, I'm like, oh, I need to get this out. If something's on my face, I need to get it out, you know? And it was always like hours of just being in the mirror.
The zoom in ones that are like so close to your face. You can see all your pores and you're just like, oh, you start on one end and you see more and you're just like, okay.
You look in the regular mirror and you're like, oh, I don't look so bad today. Everything's fine. Then you look into the other mirror. It's like everything's not fine at all. We have hours of work to do. Sits on sink like all swollen for hours. But that was kind of my beginning. I didn't know that people did it too. Like I was just constantly told by my family, get out the mirror, stop doing it, stop picking your face, get out the mirror. And I'm just like a piece of me wanted to, but a bigger piece of me didn't want to, because I found like solace, like peace in it, because it's satisfaction, you know, endorphins, you know, these different things, like, oh, I'm getting something out, I'm getting something that's impure out of me. It's called impurities, right? Pimples, blackheads, whiteheads, all the things, like, so I'm getting it out of me. That's what I'm supposed to do, right? But it's like, all right, well, being mad extreme, nobody else is doing this. And I met someone who is a friend of mine, and like I was like, I seen her go into the bathroom and I was like, oh my god, you do this too? Like, you pick too? You do it too? Like, oh, and it's like when you have that realization, it's kind of like a deeper understanding and respect is like as I pick. Like, you know, it's like, yeah, I'll pass that on to you if you want to share your first experience or something.
I think it was watching Dr. Pimple on YouTube, like just constantly seeing the big giant boils like squeezed out, and just the satisfaction of seeing that, and then wanting to do that on my face when I would like find a zoom in mirror. I think it started more when my mom would pluck my eyebrows and stuff, and she would use that mirror, and then I'll be like looking at it like, oh my god, like my pores are like all clogged in here, and I'm just like, I want to get them out. And my mom had like this little tool, like a little spoon scooper
little metal
thing, and you can squeeze in, and then like I would like extract it all the time, and then like it became kind of like a habit for me of feeling like I needed to do that in order to like kind of like help speed up the process of like healing my skin. And I felt like it was something that I felt like it was having to do with just seeing people's skin being so nice and clear, and like I'm like, do they also have this problem too of having clogged pores? Like, is it just me? And like, yeah, it's just, I felt like there was times where like, for example, like a new pimple will come up on my face, and I would just do my best just not to like squeeze it and just leave it alone. And then it's just, I guess like the side of it like would bother other people, and they were like, can I squeeze that pimple for you? Can I just pop it for you? And I'm just like, if this person wants to pick my pimple too, then maybe I might as well just pick it too, you know, like kind of like picking at the things that you may not like about yourself because you don't want that person to pick on you about it, you know, kind of thing. And then like it becomes more of an internal thing where I find myself picking at things that I may not like about me before any person has a chance to, and realizing that, yeah, it became something that I would do with my skin. So,
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for hearing me.
Of course. It's such an interesting journey, and it's like I feel like, you know, there's a few like little niche communities in which I have granted myself permission to, as an adult, to feel valid enough to be a part of. I feel like for a long time I was like in denial of certain things, or I wouldn't allow myself because of other people's kind of bias still playing out in my head. So still hearing their voice saying certain things when I'm doing things, and invalidating the process. And now as an adult and as a like sovereign being, it's like I've been exploring these different spaces and places, and in the Reddit dermatillomania community, it's like, you know, it's just one of those things that like where I feel so not only seen and heard, and but also I'm very grateful that I can also give advice and give back to this community. I became an esthetician over 5 years ago, about 5 years ago now. As like the reason was because I picked my skin. You know, my sister was like, you should be an esthetician. You're like hyper obsessed with your skin. Like, why don't you become an esthetician? I was like, first of all, what's an esthetician? Like, I had no idea what an esthetician was. I had no idea who did that. I didn't know like that was a thing. I had never gotten like a massage done, unless maybe like if I got my nails done, maybe like a little something. You know, I've never gone to like a spa type place at that point in my life. I was probably like 17. And she was like, yeah, you should like look into that. And I'm like, oh, okay. You know, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, and I looked into it. I was like, this is actually perfect. Like, why wouldn't I do this? You know, this is exactly like I hyperfixate on it. Why don't I get educated on it? And, you know, shout out to my sister also who put me on to more of the natural way of like, here's tea tree oil from Trader Joe's, you know, my first little square glass bottle of it. And I was just using it all the time. I remember the first time I used it, I hated it. Like, I hated the smell. I was like, oh my God, this is so intense now. Like, it's just nothing. You know, it's just like, not nothing, but it's not intolerable to me. But at first I'm like, oh, but I'll do it anyway. Because I used to put toothpaste on my face. You know?
Oh, you're bringing me back.
Yeah, like I used to put toothpaste on my face, dry it out, and it's like I don't even use toothpaste that would probably have the ability to do that now. Nonetheless, like, am I educated enough to not pursue it in that way? But it's been really interesting. I find that, you know, in all different communities and in the aesthetics community too, like there's people who don't, you know, do that in their estheticians, you know. And then there's a lot of people that do that. I probably say from my own data collection of being in the business realm of the community and also like going to school in it. I was a brand manager of a natural skincare company for like about 2.5 years or something around there. And I used to travel all over the United States to sell skincare at different trade shows. Wow. And in those moments, like I met so many estheticians, so many people, so many clients. And I would be the person who would also call them and follow up and have them reorder. So in that process, I feel like I've learned that I would say like it's 50-50. I would say, to be fair, it's probably like 50% of estheticians, whether they admit it or not to themselves, have or struggle with dermatillomania and do pick at their skin, and that's why they kind of came into it, to be like, all right, I'm going to find the solution for myself and for other people. And and then there's some people that just, it's not one of their struggles. They might have another struggle. And I've been like doing this internal study on this for a while, where it's like I find that people who, there's like the similarities in people I've met that also pick out their skin. And it's like a similar thing of needing to get things out, right? Like once being aware of something, not letting it just be, right? It's not like, but to get it out. So it's like that trait can kind of go deeper into the sense of like, you know, if you notice a character defect, that you're not just okay with it. You can't be numb to it. You have to work on it. So it's like the people that I've met that also kind of struggle with picking at their face and picking at themselves are people that are constantly like regenerating, doing their best to like be their best selves. And but at the same token, coming from the aspect more of like the shadow work aspect than the light work aspect on themselves, right? Like, so they could be the sweetest people and doing all the things for everybody in a good way, but like for themselves, come more from the space of like, I'm very aware of, like, you ask me what I don't like about myself, I'll tell you in 5 seconds, but you ask me what I do like about myself, and I'm going to struggle a little bit more to find that answer. So I feel like it kind of goes back to maybe like a worthiness womb that most humans in general have. But the way it's expressed in a person who may pick can be more of a like hypersensitive type, like that we don't have a choice but to like break these cycles, that like we find these little coping mechanisms that can give us like a little bit of relief from our own brain. And it's like, because now if I'm fixated on getting something out of my body, I'm not thinking about, you know, or maybe I am thinking about it, because I've been trying to pay attention, like also for years since I've been aware of it, I've been trying to pay attention to the triggers. Like, when do I pick? And I thought it was just when I was stressed. And I'm like, no, girl, it's when I'm happy too. I'm like, I'll be so excited. It'll be like, sometimes right before the podcast, I'm about to be on cameras and I'll be like, oh, you know what I should do? Give me like 2 seconds. I just hopped out the shower. There's one right here. I'm like, all right, let me just. And I'm like, why? No, I have to go into mass recovery mode, because the thing that I'm like an OD brat about is like, I dead ass know how to fix my face. Like, so I've been like trained in school and many different like trainings and different things to correct like intensive damaged skin. So I will wreck my face, and in 2 weeks I'll have like nothing. I'll have nothing. So like that's the brat part of me that like. But then if you're my client and you come get a facial, I'm like the most gentle hand. Like, and when I go about like popping a pimple, I'm like, are you okay? It's okay for you, you know, very gentle. But myself, I'm like, I'll rip my face off right now. What's good? It's fine. I will grow back tomorrow. Like, you know, and I'm like, but I'm like that with myself and other things, you know. This is what I've been noticing, been paying attention.
See, but like even using products, I realized like just slapping it on and like hoping that it'll do something for me instead of having that intention of what you were saying when you're gentle with your clients. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna scrub my face and then like put my oil and massage my face using gua sha and like really being more intentional with my skincare instead of just like going ham on it and then just like feeling guilty and bad about it afterwards. I'm like, oh my God, my face is all swelled up, and then getting ice trying to fix it and just trying to bring the swelling down. And I'm just like, why am I not being gentle with myself? Like, why am I always so ready to just like find anything to pick at? And it made me realize that in turn, it made me feel like I was doing that to the people that I care about, like just nitpicking things and realizing that I needed to be like my favorite teacher when she was encouraging me and just so compassionate towards me, and just using that as my inner voice towards myself, of like having that energy of like, you know, being patient with myself in the process of healing and not trying to rush the healing because you just want the final result. You're just thinking about the final result and it's like, yeah, I want that. So I'm just going to like jumpstart that. And then it's like, no, like just being patient with the process and not feeling the need to like be in control all the time. So that was like, okay, I realized like I'm a control freak. That's one thing I don't like about myself.
That's huge. Like that, the correlation of the control and this, like that's so, it's so true. It's like, okay, I can't control what's going on around me, but what I can control is me busting this pus out this blackhead right now and making me forget about this other thing I'm not in control of, you know? And it's like, oh man, you know, even like, you know, I really, really went in on my face when I have a face mask on once I'm walking out the bathroom. Like, it's like I do face masks in general also, but like if I was in the bathroom for a while and then the face mask on, it's like I don't even want you. You don't even get to see me like this. Like, you know, I've had partners that I've been with that are like, "Yo, why are you doing this?" Like, I didn't realize like that it was such an extreme version of doing something until I've had people like really concerned, like be like, "Why are you doing this?" I remember one of my partners I was with in the beginning of them and I dating, he was like, why are you doing that to your face? Like, I had at the time, it was like a summer, I think of like whatever, it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant in detail, like here we go oversharing, but it was like my whole chin was like scraped off and like layers, and I had a whole, like, it was like big because I had done a chemical peel and picked. Like, as an esthetician, I know these things don't go together. I know I was breaking a whole bunch of rules, but I break rules when it comes to myself. When it comes to other people, I don't. I'm very, okay, I know this is cause and effect. I gotta make sure. Like, okay, are you gonna be around the sun? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, but with myself, I'm like, I could have been going to the beach the next day. I'm like doing all this crazy stuff, and my skin was having such a big, like, it was just like scabs. Like, I had like a goatee of scabs. It was intense. Like, it was that intense. And I remember him looking at me and being like, why do you do this to yourself? Like, you don't even need makeup. Like, what? And you're out here like just attacking your face so that you have to wear makeup. Why are you doing this? Like, when he said that to me, I was like, why do I do this? Why do I do this for years? And why is it so bad? You know, why am I so intensely doing this right now? And at the time, I was like experiencing a lot of turmoil, you know, and a lot of transitions. And it was just, you know, it was a coping mechanism, still can be, you know. And I also realized that, because specifically, you know, in this episode, we're talking more about picking at the face. And it's like, I was driving, right? I'm driving and I'm like, I'm doing so good. I'm not picking, haven't been picking, you know. And then I realized that I still was picking, but I went to my scalp. So I didn't realize, because I'm driving and I'm like thinking to myself, like, wow, I haven't like scanned my face. Like, the term is called like scanning, where you feel for bumps or impurities and like, you know, and like once you feel it, you're like, you know, get it off. and I realized to stop doing it in my face, but subconsciously I just migrated somewhere else. And then I looked in the mirror and I was like this, and I was like, wait a second. Wait, like, that's not doing it. That has just changed the course, you know? And I was just like, wow. And I became like super compassionate, especially for people when you notice that people don't know that they're doing something. That was something that I was not conscious I was doing. And I was doing it. So I was like thinking about a whole bunch of different people, cases, scenarios, and that I couldn't comprehend at the time because I didn't have any experience with really being aware of being on autopilot with a physical action. It's different when you're autopilot in a mental, you're not aware that you emotionally did something energetically, but physical, I've always felt like I've been very aware of like certain things I'm doing physically.
Yeah.
And that was like scary. It was scary. It was like, you know, like the sense of like I'm a puppet, like to my
mind
own
of its own.
yeah, like I'm a puppet to my own coping mechanism, and I didn't even realize it. And I remember pulling over. I like pulled over at Campo Beo. I got a morisoñando. I was like, let me get a morisoñando about this right now because I don't even know how to feel. And like they say in Threads, people get like acrylic nails because then you can't do it, you know, and these different things. And you know, I think it's really important for anyone who has anyone in their life that does do this to have compassion, you know, to maybe not just say like, hey, get out of the bathroom, stop doing that. Because it's like when you're saying that, it feels very like first off, I'm not listening. Like, first off, like, I don't even hear you because I'm like 20 minutes deep into my face. Like, and I noticed that when I'm that deep into my face, it's like, it's not even like I'm escaping my mind because I feel like I'm thinking about such deep things while I'm doing it. I just feel like I'm not feeling it because I'm feeling the sensation of something different. So I'm observing it. But I'm not feeling that. I'm able to like look at it, like put it under a microscope, like take it out of me and put it under a microscope and not feel it. But I feel the cold microscope on my eye, you know, and that's me picking. Rather than being immersed in it and not being able to see it. Because not for nothing, not that I recommend or like, you know, I'm not trying to glorify picking at all whatsoever, but I've come to like some serious deep conclusions while picking. Serious conclusions about picking while picking, you know, like when I started getting objective. I remember one time I was in a ceremony, I have it in a book somewhere that I'll like maybe post it later or something, but I wrote a note to myself. I was talking to my friend Jenny, I was away. My friend Jenny and Nicole. Love you guys. And I said, I was like, you don't need to keep picking at yourself. You know, I was like, it was so simple, but it was so deep for me in the way that I had felt into it. I'm like, yeah, like, I don't have to do this all the time. Like, I'm an esthetician. I'm gonna pick. Like, it's gonna happen because I'm good, whether it's gonna be someone else or me, but it doesn't hit the same. Like, of course, I get happy for someone when they come as my client, and they're like, oh, you know, extract me. I need some extract. I'm like, all right, word, cool, you know, and I do it, and I get happy. I show them, like, I'm like, look at what came out of you, you know, rubs it, throws it out, you know, and but it doesn't hit the same. Like, I don't lose myself when I'm extracting someone else. I'm like very aware of like, okay, are you okay with how much we took out of you? We can go back because you really get a 15-minute window after you steam your skin where you should do it. And then after that, you are a lot more susceptible to scarring because your pores are now closed. Okay. So in that 15 window, I'm like, okay, are you good? Or you feel like, you know, you want to go for more, like whatever it is, like I'll have to prep for that. It depends on the client and like what they really want to focus on in their facial. But like, it's not the same. Like, I'm not like getting a rush the way I do with myself, you know? And it's interesting. It's interesting because like, I feel like you'd imagine it to be the same, and it's not, because it is a very personal thing. It's a very intimate thing. Like, this is me and me and all of my imperfections. It's like, oh, it's also hysterical to think like, oh, I'm gonna get everything out right now. And it's that same extreme energy that I find can happen sometimes when I'm doing different ceremonial things to purge.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, all right, if I know I'm not fool enough to think like at this point that I'm going to get everything out in one go, but I do as much as possible.
Yeah.
Like, as much as possible.
I remember when you were saying when you take something out, you have to put something back in. Like, what would you feel like you would try to put back in when you would go through that picking process?
That's when I'm being my best self, when I'm being good to myself. It's nutrients. Not only do you want to be aware of your skincare and what ingredients are you putting in, but what are you saying to yourself when you're putting it back on? Like, I feel like that changed my world when something you had said earlier, when you were like, and I stopped just like, all right, this is going to fix it. And you started like being more present with it. It makes a huge difference when you're like, okay, we're going to scrub away what no longer serves me. And now we're going to apply all of these nutrients and all these antioxidants that are going to scourge the free radicals. And now we're going to have glowing skin, and you deserve it. And you deserve to glow from the outside the way you do on the inside. You deserve to look the way you feel, and just kind of speaking that affirmations and different things into yourself when because come from that depleted state, even if it was imperfections, bacteria, pus, whatever was experienced, like whatever it was, right? You're still coming from a lack now, and thank you for bringing that up, because it's important. I feel like when it comes to clients, I think about it more. I'm like, oh, we did an extraction. It's not even like a thought at that point. It's like I know exactly what to do after that. It's like, okay, we take off I usually put like a de-encrustation, which is like something that takes the ends, like it's an enzymatic, steam activated kind of mask thing that will take off layers of the skin lightly and very gently, so that when you extract, it comes out like butter. It's just like very like very that. Easy experience for everybody involved. And when you're in that process, after that, you just, okay, boom, we're done with extracting, cleanse the face, I'll take the toner, kind of go over it, and then I start going into the serums, like I'll go into toner, and then I'll go into serums. And once I go into the serums, I love serums. Serums are like one of my favorite staples in skincare. I have combination skin, so like when I think of creams, I like instantly I'm like, I'm gonna break out.
Yeah,
I think
the
of
heaviness.
The heaviness, and like even if it's I'm forgetting the word right now, comedogenic, I believe it is, where it's like where it clogs your pores, and it creams just tend to give me a certain kind of purge in certain areas, so I have my oilier areas. It's like, we're good on oil here. We don't need it, but my drier areas are like, well, we do. So it's about also applying it. But serum is like this hyper concentrated, it's like a ginger shot. You know what I mean? You correlate it with a ginger shot. It just makes you feel good. You're like, ooh, whatever I did today, but I still had a ginger shot. Like I had a concentration of a whole root. What's up? Like this, I feel good about that. And that's what like a serum is like. It's like this concentration of whatever you're working with, really, because serums are all different. And I love the feeling of them because they're very like watery and gel-like, and rather than other products that can be a little bit more thick and rich, which are also great, especially when you're working with people with dry skin. But speaking on myself, that's the point where I always give the most affirmations, and at the end too. But like that, the serum, I don't know. The serum is like the after for me when it comes to picking. It's like it's the serum kind of going in, because I imagine the serum going in to the holes in which we're taken out, and then the moisturizer SPF kind of like goes on top and gives like the
seals it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's something that I've been trying to implement more with affirmations. Like when you were talking about how sometimes doing so much shadow work that you don't do some light work. Because I just recently got into shadow work because I was more on the light work side. And I was like, this isn't working. I don't feel like I'm digging deep enough. And um, kind of like same thing with like, you know, when you're extracting, like I want to get deep in there, like make sure it's all out. Like, and then it's like forgetting the whole process of like, okay, you got all of that out, but are you putting anything back in there? You know, like, are you encouraging yourself now that you know what you don't like about yourself? But it's like accepting, like learning how to accept the parts of myself that I was picking at, because I felt like I wasn't being more like kind of like holding a baby in your arms when it comes to the things that you don't like about yourself. It's like being gentle with that instead of like, oh, like what is this? Like we have to get you out of here. Like I don't like this, you know.
I'm getting thrown out of club, like
Yeah, yeah.
like, get them out of here.
Yeah, like, get out of here. Like why you in here? And it's
You
like
can't sit with us. Go.
shit. And I'm just like, okay, you know, I don't like that either. Because then it's like, then I resort to feeling shame and guilt. And then I'm like, all right, so what can I do to like really feel like I'm loving on myself again, and realizing that I needed to kind of just balance the light work and the shadow work and affirmations. Like I constantly kept seeing people like, you know, talk about affirmations, and I kind of thought of it was being like cheesy. I'm like, oh no, this is really cheesy. Like, what do you mean I have to say this to myself? And I'm just like, okay. I was like, let's just try it. Let's just look in the mirror. And like just one day I just like, instead of picking at my face, like when I felt the urge, I was just like, I looked in the mirror and I was like, Anita, you don't need to rush the process. I need you to be here, be present with where you're at right now. Don't think about where you want to be, who you want to be, but be okay with who you are right now. And that in itself made me feel like I was being more present instead of like being in the future of who I want to be. And it just made me feel like it helped me ground myself more, because I felt like sometimes unconsciously I would pick at my face, and not really even know that I was really doing it, honestly, almost kind of like on pilot mode. Like I'll start on one, and then like by the time I'm done, I'm like regretting it afterwards. Like, oh wow, what did we just do right now?
It's like even when you're halfway going through it, you're like, well, I already did it.
Yeah,
so
might
I'm
as well
gonna
finish
commit.
it.
I might as well get everything that's ever been on my face out right now in this 1/2 hour.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, you know what, like it'll be fine by tomorrow. And I'm like, yeah, no, it's not. And
It's like the same thing that's like like I deserve it energy, but coming in a different way. It's like I feel like I do the same thing with food, where I'm like, oh, okay, nah, I deserve it. Like I can have this one thing. Like I'm not gonna eat bad tomorrow. I'm gonna have this one thing right now, and it's gonna be over. And then it's like tomorrow comes, and I'm like, you know, or maybe it won't be tomorrow. Maybe it'll be in a few days. And I'm like, nah, I deserve it. Or the same thing. Like many people have the same thing. It just looks like different things. Some people have it also with like, you know, buying things for themselves, you know, or like whatever the case is. You know, it's still a form of, you know, compulsion, coping, feeling good, wanting to feel good, essentially, just like everyone else. Like same thing with people who abuse drugs and alcohol. Like it's like you just want to feel good, you want to feel something, and that's something you want to feel something because you don't want to feel what is coming up, you know. So you want to feel something else. You know, the grass is greener, but it's like, but the grass is greener where you water it. So if you water where you're standing at, then you look down and you're like, the grass is greener right here.
Yeah.
You know, I just need to be, you know, I need to give myself permission to view it in that way and to have and live that experience. And yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting how when you become aware of the different things and the little, you know, ticks or things that we may have, that you don't know that people have. And then, I don't know, I feel like there's this sense of like, you know, just like when we're like, oh, you pick too, you know, it's just that like, yo, I understand your flavor of struggle right now. I get it. And it like brings that sense of resonance, like, oh, we're all doing our best, and not that we should promote doing it, certainly not. It's more just like, I see you. Like, and you also have the capacity to see me. Because it's like, I've been thinking about this recently, and I'm like, is it that I've always had a fear of being seen when it comes to like my shyness or like different things? I'm like, is it a fear that I've always had being seen because I was looked at, or was it because I was looked at and misunderstood from being looked at? So is it that I don't want to be seen, or is it that I want to be seen by people who could actually see me? And like that was something I was thinking about yesterday. I was like, like that's like a hits blunt thought, like, you know, like, I was having a moment yesterday, you know, and I was just like, wow, yeah, like that feels more where I'm at now, because I'm always like, oh, you know, I don't want to be seen that way, or like I've had to get over a lot of different things coming up here, and like and here and and allowing myself to be seen and sharing these things. And my whole thing about this podcast is to like help others to be seen for who they are, rather than what people may perceive them to be, and also like constantly unpack that with me. It's like, you know, I was thinking about it yesterday or the day before. I was thinking about it the day before, where it was like I posted something, and there was a situation that had happened that some people were around and seen and felt and knew, and I expressed and like felt into that, and you know, and then later on in the evening I made a status that had absolutely nothing to do with that. And I thought to myself, how many people think that what I'm talking about right now is what is correlating with what happened earlier? And I just giggled, and I was like, the way my ADHD is set up, I'm like, it couldn't have been. Like, it's so much time has passed for me to even be still on that, you know? So I was just thinking about, you know, I was like giggling at the thought of the perceptions other people may have of me, which is an immense amount of growth because of the previous way of thinking, how it used to really get to me, and like how it made me upset that I would feel like people were constantly misunderstanding me. And in that, carrying that misunderstood, like, and being like, well, you wouldn't get it anyway. Like, even if I didn't say it out loud in my head, I'm like, this person doesn't understand. And that only attracted more people that didn't understand. Now, when I started understanding myself and not needing to be validated by having people say that they understand me, more people like that started showing up in my life. And that's when these things started happening, being open. That's why, like, on this podcast, it's duality, because it's about how we all find our balance in life, you know, but it's also like to show the dual nature of each and every one of us. Like, you may know someone who comes up on the podcast as someone, and then they come on the podcast and you learn so much more about them, and they break the box or kick down the pedestal. And I feel like I constantly do that with myself as well, and the way people perceive me. And instead of being like, people don't understand me, it's more like, if you want to, it's accessible. If you don't, it's also not needed. But this is the journey of not only, you know, having the space for people to amplify their voice and be understood and heard, as well as the people listening being understood and heard. It's also a part of my journey of being understood and heard by myself and or others, you know, going back and listening to these podcasts and being like, oh my God, cringe. I don't feel like that anymore, but I understand her. I understand why she felt that way, like speaking to my younger self or my previous self. And I'm like, oh, so it's a journey. It's a journey.
I like that. You can do that. You can look at your previous self and say that, because it's like all versions of yourself, or it kind of reminds me of the Avatar with like all his
the prior ones, the past lives coming up to it. Avatar is so dope.
It really is. But I'm really grateful to be here, honestly, because I really think that one of the things I always struggled with was wanting to change how people perceive me all the time. And a lot of the times, I really think it had to do with Instagram as well. Like, people get this idea of who they think you are because of like how you present yourself on that platform. And I'm shy, but I really am not like always shy. I really think it just has to do with me just being self-conscious of how I'm being perceived, that I don't get to pull out that part of me that when people see me on Instagram, I'm like jamming and I'm dancing and I'm just like goofing around. Like, that's me because I'm with myself. And I'm like, this is me when no one's watching me. And, you know, and when people meet me, they're like, where is that? Where is that energy? And I'm just like just feeling it out. I'm like,
it's like, first of all, I'm not comfortable yet. Like, you know, you don't get access to like the whole part of me in that moment. I understand that.
Yeah.
It's also being protective of yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. And I'm really glad that I'm here sharing this space with you, because I'm like, I always resonate with you all the time. I'm just like, thank you.
I feel like, you know, the feeling is the same every time. Yo, shout out to Alvin Dan for having us meet here upstairs.
Yeah.
Shout out to Day for putting on the event that was the event that I was speaking about, love versus attachment, right?
Yeah.
That's it's like that video just re-popped into my world a few days ago. Yeah. I reposted on Facebook, and like I forgot. You know, you forget some things that you've done. Like, I remember that I did it, but I forgot what I said, and I needed to hear it. And I was like really grateful. But I remember meeting you. I remember meeting, like, see, I'm like, I love your shirt. I'm like, you're so sweet. I love your energy. Yeah. You know, and that was so shout out to Alvin, shout out to Dave for having that event.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. And so grateful to have met you, and you know that our relationship, to know each other more and to see each other grow and to see each other thrive and to see each other go through the things that we go through, and then like, because I feel very similar to you, like I resonate deeply, like it's like we have similar sense of humor. And it's like it's like things hit different when you and a person have a similar niche sense of humor.
Yeah,
because it's like
with the memes.
Yeah, it's just like it's like, you know, when someone shows you a meme and you're like, I don't think that's funny at all. Yeah. Like, and then you're like, okay, that's cool. We have different sense of humors. But then like someone shows you a meme and you're like, yo, did you go into my brain and extract this? Because I just want to know. The people want to know. How did you get it? How'd you get it here?
For real.
And I steady feel like that when I watch your stories. I'm like, yo. Like, sometimes I even like post on my stories. I'm like, shout out to Anita, because this is her story. Her entire story replicated.
No, and, you know, the same for you with the Massachusetts. I was just like, yo, I've been saying it like that my whole life, and somebody made a post, and I was just like, thank you for validating that experience, because I really still can't till this day say that word.
Yeah, it's you know, memes are an essential part of mental health. I truly feel like it's like any person that is working in any spectrum of wellness needs to like provide, I feel like space for meme culture, because that's, I don't know, it's just like that, the humor in it of just reading something. It's like a more modern version of a comic in the morning, you know, like the way people would open the newspaper and like get that laugh from that. Like we get that 24/7 from the random memes that come up, you know, and it's you know, shout out to memes for making life bearable. Sometimes it doesn't feel bearable.
For real. Thank you.
Yeah, because laughing is such medicine, you know, and it's also a form of purging. So it's like we can purge, you know, do all these different things that cause us to release things. Yeah. Sneezing, burping, laughing, these are things that we forget also happen. Like if someone's having like a purging experience, sometimes they just be sneezing, sneezing, like, or like, you know, or coughing or burping, or like, you know, doing energy work. Friends of mine and I have noticed, like, you know, it would be like doing Reiki or doing some healing, like whatever healing modality we were using at that time. And it's like, why do I need a burp? And like almost embarrassed of it. Like, I'm going to burp, like, you know, this person's like going through it. I'm over here like, burp. So like prior to my sessions with people, I'm like, listen, there's going to be some sounds. Like, I'm a human being. Like, things like when it goes, because, you know, when you're a person moving the energy, it's like you're not, it's good to get it out, because if you don't burp, then you're going to hold on to whatever it is that's trying to, because you're just a vehicle. Yeah. So it's like, I'm going to burp. Like, I'm not going to hold that.
You got to fart, too.
Yeah, if you got to do
make
what you got to do. Like, I'll walk out the room, like, respectfully, but, like, I'm not going to do that to you. But, like, I got to let things go because you have to. It's like, if you don't, then you just harbor it. Yeah. You know, and whether it's and the same thing applies to yourself, you know, but then there's also the middle ground of like, okay, cool, I could let these few pimples out, cool, but also like I don't need to take everything out, you know, and have that kind of experience. So it's you know, just like everything, just finding balance, you know, in whatever it is that you're doing, and allowing and not forcing. Because when we force and when we're like, okay, boom, this is how I want it to go, this is how it's going to go, like, just like you see with picking, that's not how it goes. Yeah. Your face is swollen now. Now you're late to your tia's party because you wanted to act crazy. You know what I'm saying? You go into the bathroom. I was on the phone with, like, shout out to Eman too, like, my friend Emmanuel. I was on the phone with him one day and we were talking about picking. I didn't know that he was a pick. I was like, yo, it's crazy. Like, especially a man. I've never met a man that picks. Yeah. So I think he was the first man I ever met that picked. And I was like, yo, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And like, he said, I said something. I was like, you know, it's bad when you catch yourself in someone else's bathroom and you're picking, and you're like, because you went to the bathroom where like you were out somewhere and then you didn't realize that you have a white ready to go pimple. Now you're embarrassed for existing places. Like, I'm an embarrassment to myself for have walked around with this disgraceful but like pimple on my face just ready to just like pop. Like, you know, like I can't believe I lived this life for this long and no one told me. And you know, then you take care of what you gotta take care of, like, you know, hopefully respectfully and as sanitary as you can, you know. And that's what you realize there's a problem. That's why like we was like cracking up, because you like understood entirely, and it was like, yo, like, you know, I've been there. And it's just like, yeah, it's crazy the different things that we do. It's like I feel like, you know, the same it's just so many communities that do it. Like, same way people in AA, like, or in NA, or whatever, you know, recovery is like when they're talking about, or in Codependency Anonymous, or like all these different places where it's like you share these stories that resonate with many people, and you can almost like laugh about it because you're like, this is wild that like I thought this was okay in this moment because I was so on autopilot. But it's like also the compassion, and then I think that's why it's so important with community. And that's like what Lewis and I were talking about prior on the previous episode, is like, you do these things on your own, you unpack them on your own, but then unless you find that niche kind of community, whatever it is that you're fixating on, you just feel alone, you know. But when you are in that community and like you're like, yo, I'm not alone at all, like I can feel like it's like almost when I feel like people talk, or like I read things about people picking and doing different things, or if I see someone I know picking, I don't want to do it to myself because I'm seeing what they're doing to themselves, and it's so directly reminding of like what I'm doing. Like, because when you're doing it to yourself, it's so easy to not feel like it's not good.
Because you can't see yourself in third person and like watch yourself.
But then when you see someone walk out the bathroom like mad puffy face, and you know, not only did they just give their face a beating, but they gave their whole internal reality a beating, most likely, you know. And then it's just like like there's just moments at times, like even in conversation, even just reading, you know, or seeing these spaces where like people are like, I did my best, you know, I've been doing so good for so long, and I just relapse. And you know, on whether it's picking, whether it's drugs, alcohol, you know, and like, and you can feel into that. It's like, if for anybody that hasn't experienced addiction in drugs or alcohol and has maybe an addiction to skin picking, or another kind of fixation that you do, you can find it in you to be a lot more compassionate to things that are more societally unacceptable, because it's just their brand of extremism. Yours just can be done in the bathroom. No one can know about it because it's not going to alter your mind in the way that drugs and alcohol might. But it's still like that still exists, to have that compassion. And I feel like humanity needs to get reminded of that at times, because of the way we alienate people that do things that are more socially unacceptable, even if it's not drugs and alcohol, even if it's just, you know, even if it's like sex work, or if it's like hypersexuality, or these different things that are like sex addiction. And it's like, you know, even like at times for me, like I have a hard time fully surrendering to like being overly compassionate, because I feel like how much, like it's like I feel like with people, not only with anything sex related, but also just like hyper addictions around, and just in general, because I like know that you need to be compassionate, but you also need to be strong and disciplined, or else it's not like, you need to practice what you preach before you speak to people. And that's what, so with certain cases and scenarios, like I'm not gonna be someone, like I'm not gonna sit here and glorify face picking. Like I'm not gonna glorify sex work. I'm not gonna glorify addiction, you know. But I accept it and I understand it. I have compassion for it, you know. And that's like, and it doesn't mean that it's invalid or it's not good or I'm judging it. It's just like there's parts of every extreme thing that we do that can be, you know, finding a balance within it. Everything in moderation. So once anything is out of moderation, whether it's even something working out that can seem good for you, you know, can still be bad for you if not done in moderation and balanced out with the rest of your life. So it's like, you know, in a space where I feel like there's so much PC culture, and you know, not that it doesn't need, because I'm not like anti that either. It's just I don't know, I don't fully resonate with sounding like I'm a lawyer, or I'm not. I didn't go to school to have the words and things like that. Like I read and I understand and comprehend, but I don't speak like that. I never did. It wasn't my thing to present this, like, because it feels very cold and disconnected. I might curse when I speak. I might, you know, show emotion when I speak, and like it doesn't mean that I don't agree with what's trying to be done on the side. It's just more of like finding the balance for me. It's like, and having the courage to speak on things that, you know, aren't necessarily spoken, or people's perception of me to think that I would be like a radical person in one way. You know, and it's not that I don't accept people as they are. I do. Like if you know me, if you hear me, if you listen, if you really listen to what I'm saying, without attacking and judging it, you'll know that too. You know, that it's all meant with love. And like that, I feel like having different people speak to me about picking in that way of like not judging me for what I was doing or making it feel like I was stupid, because a lot of people made me feel like just stupid for doing, like, just stop.
It is very dismissive. Yeah.
Completely invalidating of what's going on. Like, you think I would just do this for fun, you know? And then, but the people were like, hey, I know you have your experience with it, but like, maybe there's another way, you know? I'm a strong believer, like, if you have something to say about someone or something, first of all, make it consensual. You know, that they actually want to hear that and they're ready to receive that. And second off, like, make it so that you're giving alternative options. You know, if you're pro-life, and are you going to give them another option to not have a baby? Like, are you going to take care of that baby? Because if you are, then maybe speak on it. If you're going to raise their child for them.
Yeah.
But if you're not willing to do that, you really have no business saying nothing to nobody.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, and the same thing goes for, you know, the opposite spectrum. If you're pro-abortion, like, how can we make some spaces for the process that women go through grieving after that process? And how can we implement different things that, or education, and not only just shove people on birth control so that abortions aren't used as birth control? How can we educate people to not have these extremes, or and certainly not have laws on it, but like not have these extremes without the support after, you know? It's like people need the support, and that's the community self thing. Is like, we think like, oh, I could do it on my own. Like, you know, I got this all the time. And it's like, you don't even get to give yourself nearly as much credit or understanding, or when you're living in your own bubble. When you're in a snow globe, you only know the parameter of the snow globe. Yeah. But when you crack that shit, and now you're like all over the floor, and you're like, oh, word, there's so much more than what I think.
Yeah. Damn, definitely. And definitely need more options out there, always, because what may work for someone else may not work for everybody else, and definitely agree with that. Yeah, taking it all in right now, because I feel like yeah, that's one of the things that I felt like I had to learn within myself, of learning like how you were saying, make it more consensual when you want to give someone a certain kind of advice or whatever you want to say. Like, sometimes people just want to be heard, and sometimes they don't need that. Sometimes they just want space, someone to make space for them. And I had to like hold myself accountable for that kind of thing too, to just learn how to ask people, like, how can I support you in this moment? Like, what can I do for you? Instead of feeling like, oh, I need to fix it. Kind of like the method I use on myself with extracting my pimples and my blackheads. I'm like, I need to fix this right now. And then realizing that I was kind of projecting that onto the people that I care about, and realizing that maybe this is not what they need right now. Maybe they just want me to hear them, and asking people that, and then in turn doing that with myself, and not being dismissive of my own shit, and just holding space for myself in a way that doesn't require for me to fix it right there and now. Like, I don't have it figured out, and that's okay if I don't know the answers right now. And yeah, community is definitely very necessary, because it's so easy for me to think that I can only do this all by myself, because I don't want to be a burden. And then it's like, but you don't need to like share that burden alone. Like, you know, there's people out there who probably may have something that you need, you know, in order to understand something better. And just people who've been in all walks of life and have so much wisdom to share. And learning how to be a part of a community has been something that I've been learning more about, and feeling like I needed to push myself out of my comfort zone of just being that hermit all the time. And it's really a beautiful thing to be able to cry with other people as well. I really think that's one of the things that I got to experience at the retreat with Docs. I want to shout out Docs. He held a retreat with Gati, and that experience was the first time I ever got to feel what a community was like. And I never really knew what that was really like within my own life, because like both of my parents, they came from Dominican Republic, and they grew up in this really tight knit community, and they knew how to like talk to their neighbors. And like my dad knows everybody in on our block, and he had just this community based kind of personality of like always being concerned about other people. And I didn't really know that really how to really be a part of something like that. And so entering that space really gave me a whole new world. Like I just broke my globe and, got to really see like, wow, there's so much out there that I don't know. And I'm ready for this. And I'm really grateful that there are people out there who are doing, these things where they're holding space for people to know that there's so much out there than what we just know. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That really like brought me back into realizing that with my experience. So
Thank you.
yeah.
This conversation is really interesting in the
Yeah.
way that like we're sharing something and we'll activate each other.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful, which is just like another like it's like a physical embodiment of what we're talking about. It's like to it's okay to, especially for people who are hyper, not even hyper. I'm not even putting a label on it. Just people who are like, centering shadow work, right? I notice especially it's like we will in the process of finding what self-discipline looks like.
Yeah.
We will deprive ourselves of things that resonate because of fear of it validating and that validation having power over us when we're working on not needing validation from anyone outside of us. But balance, right? It's also okay to be around people you just resonate with.
Yeah.
Like it's also okay to like be around people that you resonate with and like allow yourself to validate yourself in knowing that there's another human that also thinks like you without needing it to have the pathway of like, oh, this person existing validates my existence. It's like, no, I'm validated within myself knowing that this person also has a similar experience and can feel into these different things that I've been maybe shunned, misunderstood, or excluded for thinking I think too deep into things or whatever the case is, So it's like it's a needed experience. I feel like especially when you're focusing on your character defects, or for anyone who isn't too familiar with the phrase shadow work, it's coined by Carl Jung, and he was a person who dove really deep into the subconscious and the different things in which we don't understand, bringing them to light and saying that when you're not aware of your subconscious, that it's like pretty much entirely control of your life, so that when you actually accept and like rather than trying to kill or extract entirely, that when you accept the different aspects of yourself that you may not fully appreciate at this time or give space to, that you accepting it will kind of allow it to become less reactive because it's just being acknowledged. Because just like us, when we feel misunderstood or we feel like, wow, like people aren't giving us space to be or to speak, the microcosm and the macrocosm, there's also parts of ourself that feel that way, and different versions of ourself that are like, well, I don't have space, so guess what? I'm about to spark this whole fire right now. Like, guess what? I'm about to be toxic. Are you ready for it? Because it's coming. And then you're like, oh, mad. The same way the hour spent in the bathroom, like, oh, mad that I let myself get this far. And it's like, oh, I'm mad that I burnt everything to ash, and now I have to sit with the fact that I just didn't feel heard. Or not just didn't feel heard, because minimizing it, but just not just didn't feel heard. And rather than going external with it, finding a way to go internal. So it's like with myself, what I've been noticing now is like if I start to pick, or if I start to if it's really pick, because I fidget too. Like I noticed from being on this podcast, it's like I'm hyper aware of everything that I've been doing. Not everything, but most things. But now it's like on a physical level, I see myself do certain things. So I've like witnessed like, okay, I'll fidget, I'll move things, I'll do different things. And when I notice that I'm doing that and or picking, I'm like, what am I? Release shoulders, release your jaw. It's like fits and sits into the space, into the seat. And that comes with an awkward transition. But when I stop trying to avoid the awkward transition, the more me I'm allowed to share. You know, it's like when I notice, like, okay, I'm doing something, and then I notice it, I have to pause. And in that pause, in that transition, can seem, feel, or may look awkward to other people who don't know what's happening internally. Yeah. And that's okay. I had to be okay with that. Once I became okay with that, I'm like, I'm here. Y'all are just seeing me in my element. Like, y'all are just seeing me the same way if I was sitting there, if I was doing something. My whole thing that I've been, like, really, really honing in on is, like, allowing myself to fully be myself in every space I'm in. To not be altered by people, places, and things, but allow myself to just be myself as much as possible. Because there's nothing to fear when you're being yourself. The only time there's anything to fear is when you're not being yourself. Because then the things that are looking for you can't find you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is there anything else you want to get into?
I think you covered it. Yeah. That resonated a lot. Yeah, feeling like yourself more when in all spaces. Think that I always do this thing where I scan the room and I'm scanning the energy. I'm like, kind of like, why am I like making sure everybody is comfortable and I'm not comfortable, you know, kind of thing. Like, am I making this person anxious? Am I making things uncomfortable for you? And I'm like, oh, you're the one who's uncomfortable. You're the one who doesn't feel comfortable.
That's like when someone's like, hey, are you okay? And you're fine. You know you're fine, and then you look at them and you're like, are you okay? You know, because why are you asking me if I'm okay when I genuinely feel good in this moment?
Yeah.
And you realize that person actually needs to get checked in on.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really interesting how that happens. And it's like when you said, like, scan the room, like, I'm pictured because I do the same thing. It's like I'm, like, assessing. Like, it's like I'm, like, attuning to the vibration in the room rather than just embodying my own vibration. It's like if you're on if like you're on 97.9, you know, radio station when you walk in, but everyone's on hot 97, you know, like, then you gotta lower your vibration. Why can't you just go in there like dancing bachata and listening to reggaeton on that Spanish channel? But instead, you're like, nah, I'm gonna go with the rap hits right now, and like, because everyone's listening to that. But what the entire room might have needed is for you to pull up and do your bachata, and yourself, because that's your vibration. Yeah. Rather than assessing and lowering or raising or whatever it is, because then it's like kind of unnatural, and that's when the disconnect can start happening between you and yourself. Yeah. You might connect with everyone in the room and feel disconnected to yourself.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Well, you know, if anything, you know, listening to this, may anyone who is supposed to listen to this, you know, may it receive you in a good way, come to you whenever you're supposed to hear it. May this podcast, you know, go out to anyone that does need to hear it. May you find access to it, and may it pop up in your reality in some way or another, so that you can also feel heard, seen, understood. And you know, I want to remind you that we all go through struggles within feeling comfortable in our skin, and that's the physical embodiment of just, you know, feeling comfortable with who we are on the inside. And I pray for everybody that's struggling with anything that was going on in this podcast that we kind of covered in particular. I want to specify and like be particular in this prayer and intention that, you know, may you feel the strength and the courage and encouragement to look at yourself and really love yourself in that mirror. Like, really, like, be like, yo, like, I love you. Like, I love you so much. Like, I fuck with you so much. Like, I love looking at you. I love hearing you. I love seeing you do the things that you do. May you really, really feel that. And if any affirmations feel super corny for you, just make your own. That's the only reason I do affirmations, because anytime I try to, like, look up affirmations, I'm like, I can't, because this is just fake. I don't feel this. I don't feel this. Like, that's why, like, when I'm angry or something, and someone's like, it's okay, I'll go to I'm okay, because okay is neutral. But if I'm angry, I'm not like, I'm happy. Yeah. I'm great. I'm this. No, I'm okay. I understand that I'm angry. Yeah. I don't need to be anymore. I release it, and then I start talking myself down, and then I start building myself up. Because if I just jump from like, I'm not angry, I feel great, I feel everything's abundant, butterflies and rainbows, I'm like
bypassing it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's completely skipping. It's trying to make a shortcut, and in that you blip and you lose yourself because it's not authentic. It's not real. You're dismissing your actual feelings that are coming up. Yeah. And it's your feelings are not to be put on the back burner. You really, really reap the consequences of that when you do that. Yeah. It's about, okay, boom, okay, I feel this now. I know I need to feel into this deeper into the future. And you could put that aside like that, but you acknowledge it. You're not like, I don't got time for this at all. You know, I understand certain places, times, and spaces is not the time to unpack. Like, you know, like I almost cried on the podcast last week. I felt the emotions. And I was like, okay, I respect the fact that tears are coming out, but like, let's hold this energy later and like cry, so like where we can like give it full permission. I'm not gonna fully give permission to just hysterically cry in this setting. You know, like realistically, you know. Yeah. So, but I'm not going to deny the fact that that's what was going on, you know. So, for anyone listening, you know, just have it be a reminder that to give yourself full permission to feel comfortable in the skin you're in, to feel comfortable with the person you are, to have compassion for the coping mechanisms that may have came up throughout your life, and, you know, work at your own pace to find balance. And, you know, just like you're reminded in this episode, when you take something away, what can you add? You know, what can you add in replacement of that? That could be something good. Yeah. You know, when you want to go pick, what can you do, or what can you say to yourself to rewire your brain to do something else? Like, okay, maybe I need to write something. Instead of pick, I need to like actually start journaling, you know, whatever it is. You know, may you find that within yourself, within your heart, within your mind, within your being to, you know, connect with that part of you that is screaming out to have attention, you know. And I wish the same for us too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on to the show. I have cards and stuff. I don't even feel called to do that. I feel like I just want to open up this. This one is a peace of mind. It's a daily meditation for easing stress. Look, it has every day in the book. Today is June 2nd, right?
Yes.
And let's get our first June message in here. Okay. One of my lawyers told me to read the sports section first every morning. It talks about mankind's successes, while other parts talk about mankind's problem or failures. By Michael R. Milken. Do you begin your mornings or wind down your day reading about car accidents, murders, mayhem, destruction, criminal actions, and financial losses? After focusing on the stress and strife of the world, it may be hard to have a positive outlook for the rest of the day or evening. But what would happen if today all of the stories you read or all of the news items you heard were focusing on uplifting tales? Perhaps a beloved dog, lost for weeks, was found safe and healthy. Maybe a missing child was reunited with her distraught parents. Perhaps a good Samaritan retrieved an elderly couple's money from a robber. Or maybe an airbag enabled someone to walk away from an accident. Wouldn't such stories add more positive influences to your day? While you can't depend on media for happy and satisfying stories, you can bring such stories into your life by turning off the bad news and turning on the good. Skim through magazines that cover interest features. Read biographies of people you admire. Listen to programs with entertaining and educational topics, or read the sports page in the newspaper. Today, I'll foster a positive attitude by looking for the good in everything and everyone around me.
Thank you.
I love this book so much. Shout out to Amy E. Dean, because like honestly, I got this like at a thrift store, like an old bookshop or something at some point. And the thing that's crazy, what made me get it was I opened up this book and it was like, so you see it, it's like very ripped and it's on my birthday.
Wow.
Yeah,
It picked you.
I opened up the book and I was just like,
wow.
I didn't even read it. I just closed it. I'm like, I'll read that on my birthday.
Yo,
I'm like, I'll buy that. It was like
yeah.
$2 too. Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's like really crazy. It's like literally ripped in half at my birthday.
Yeah.
And it's the thing is like it's close to the middle of the year, but it's not exactly.
Yeah.
So like there's still more on that side than on this side. So it's like it could have also been any other page around it that would actually be the middle of the year. So really cool. You know, blessed spirit for that and for sharing it in the spaces. It's interesting because almost every time, I haven't experienced it yet that it wasn't resonant with whatever was going on, whether I took it to the podcast or if I took it to a reading. Sometimes I'll read them before or after I perform a reading or, you know, tune into a reading when I say perform. But yeah, it's any moment of where it exists, it exudes just like truth in the message that needs to be heard. So I'm just grateful for that. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and for listening with us, and take whatever resonates, leave what doesn't. Thank you. And yeah, have a great day.
Thank
you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much.